Welcome, everyone! Today, we're diving into Jainism, an ancient religion built on what has to be one of the most radical ideas in all of human history, a deep, profound commitment to absolute nonviolence that extends to literally every living thing. It's a path that has shaped millions of lives for over 2,500 years.
So, to really get to the heart of what Jainism is all about, I want you to just stop and think about something for a second. What if everything around you, and I mean everything, not just people and animals, but plants, stones, even a single drop of water. What if all of it had a soul?
You see, for followers of Jainism, that isn't some deep philosophical thought experiment. It's reality. It's a fundamental truth. And if you can really wrap your head around that one single idea, you're well on your way to unlocking their entire worldview.
So you have to wonder, right? Where did a worldview that radical even come from? Well, to understand that, we need to jump in a time machine and go way back. We're talking 6th century BCE India. And let me tell you, it was a time of immense social stress. People were really, desperately looking for new spiritual answers.
Back then, society was locked into this incredibly rigid, four-part system called Varna. Right at the very top, you had the Brahmin priests. They had it made. Supreme status, exempt from taxes, you name it. Below them were the Kshatriyas, the warriors and rulers. Now, they had power, for sure, but they were starting to really resent the Brahmins' authority. Then came the Vaishyas. These were the merchants and traders, the people creating all the wealth but getting very little respect for it. And at the absolute bottom were the Shudras, the laborers who were basically born to serve everyone else with zero chance of ever moving up. I mean, you can just imagine the deep dissatisfaction simmering under the surface. This whole setup naturally led to a really powerful question. How can you ever find spiritual freedom when your entire destiny seems to be written in stone the moment you're born? And that deep, widespread unease, it created the perfect fertile ground for new movements, like Jainism, to come along and offer a totally different way forward.
And the person who really forged this new path was a man named Vardhamana, though he's much better known as Mahavira. And this is super important. Jains don't see him as a god. He was a real, historical person, a prince, actually, who walked away from a life of incredible luxury to find a much deeper truth.
So Mahavira was born into that Kshatriya warrior class. He had literally everything: wealth, status, a family. But at age 30, he just gave it all up. He walked out of his palace, left his family, and became a wandering ascetic. For the next 12 years, he pushed himself to the absolute limits with intense fasting and meditation, until he finally did it. He achieved the ultimate state of enlightenment. He then spent the next 3 decades of his life teaching others how they could find that same liberation too.
Now, this ultimate state of enlightenment, it has a name: Kevalya. You can think of it as perfect knowledge. It's that moment when the soul finally breaks free from the endless, grinding cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. And achieving Kevalya, that became the absolute central goal of everything he taught. Okay, so how exactly did Mahavira teach people to reach this state? Well, he laid out a really clear 3-part path to get there. It's known as the Triyatna, or more famously, the 3 jewels. The very first jewel is right faith. This is the foundation, the bedrock. It basically means having a complete and unwavering belief in the wisdom of the Tirthankaras, who were the great spiritual teachers in Jainism. And for context, Mahavira was the 24th and final one in our current cosmic age.
All right, the second jewel is right knowledge. And this is where the Jain worldview gets really unique. See, Jains don't believe in a creator god. For them, the universe is eternal. It has always existed. And the absolute core of this knowledge is fully accepting that truth we started with, that every single thing in existence has a living soul. And finally, we get to the third jewel, right conduct. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's where your faith and your knowledge get put into real action. It's not enough to just believe these things. You have to actively live your life according to a strict set of ethical rules, all designed to purify the soul. So what does right conduct actually look like day to day? Well, it's all defined by 5 core vows, or Mahavratas, that guide the life of every single devout Jain. These are the 5 pillars of Jain ethics. First and foremost, the big one is ahimsa, or non-violence. And this means an absolute refusal to cause harm to any living being. Then you've got satya, which is truthfulness; asteya, non-stealing; aparigraha, which is all about non-possession and not getting attached to material things. And the final vow, brahmacharya, or chastity, was actually Mahavira's own addition to the 4 principles that were already there.
And if you want a perfect example of just how seriously Jains take ahimsa, this is it. Professions like agriculture have traditionally been forbidden. And the reason is simple. If you're plowing the earth and harvesting crops, you are inevitably going to harm countless living beings in the soil, insects, worms, plants themselves. This is exactly why so many Jains historically gravitated towards things like trade and commerce, professions that were seen as causing the least possible harm.
But, like any ancient religion, Jainism has had its own major upheavals. About 200 years after Mahavira's death, a huge crisis hit that led to a fundamental split, one that actually defines the religion to this day.
So what was the catalyst? A horrific, devastating famine that struck the Magadha kingdom, the heartland of Jainism, back in the 4th century BCE. And this wasn't short-lived. It lasted for 12 long years and forced a massive group of Jain monks to flee, just to survive.
So what happened was, one group of monks migrated south, while another decided to stay behind. When the southern group finally came back 12 years later, they found that the monks who stayed had started wearing simple white robes, while the returning monks argued that this completely violated the vow of non-possession. They believed true renunciation meant giving up everything, and that included clothes. This one disagreement created the two main sects of Jainism you see today, the Svetambara, which means white-clad, and the Digambara, or sky-clad.
And all of this brings us to one final thought. In our modern age, an age of endless consumerism where we're always told to want more, what can we possibly learn from a 2,500-year-old vow of non-possession? It's a pretty radical question for our modern world, and maybe one that's worth reflecting on.